Good day, everyone. Welcome to another discussion on sign languages. So we will be focusing on the nature of sign languages, the advantages of sign languages. Okay, so let's begin. Sign languages utilize signs made with a face, hands, and other movements. It is a way to communicate through hand gestures and symbols, which are often used by deaf and mute. So, when we talk about sign languages, basically, this is part of the non-verbal communication. However, just like the process of verbal communication, sign languages also follow communication using sign languages also follows the same process in which there is sender and then the message is being encoded by the sender to the receiver decodes the message, and then the receiver, after the receiver decodes the message, he or she gives feedback. The channel is through sign languages, okay? And then the sender now becomes the receiver, the message is sent, and then the message is being decoded, and then vice versa. So it still follows the same process, okay? The only difference is that the speaker and the sender use sign languages or signs and symbols when they communicate. Moving on. It is relayed through manual articulations, which include facial expressions, hand gestures, and body movements. That is why it is part of non-verbal communication. And it involves encoding and decoding of messages to the target participants. So even if the person could not speak, the person could not hear, but if the person knows how to communicate using sign languages, then the person could still convey his or her messages, or he or she could still convey his or her emotion. Okay? So it aids to create connections with others from different places with diverse beliefs, cultures, and customs. Sign languages, the meaning of the sign languages still differ from one culture to another. So the meaning of our sign languages is different from the meaning of the sign languages of India or China or Japan. So it varies from one culture or one place to another. And it paves the way for a better understanding of other people and the world. So do not worry. Communication still takes place even if the persons or the people communicating do not use verbal communication, because there is non-verbal through the use of sign languages. And lastly, it allows you to persuade. You can still persuade using sign languages. You can still inform through sign languages as long as you understand the meaning of the sign languages and entertain the people around you using sign languages. Signs and symbols, facial expressions, body movements, gestures. So those are part of the nonverbal communication. Moving on. So let's talk about the flexibility of human language. So it shows adaptability, that when deafness leads to speech inactivity, it seeks another way through signs and symbols. So again, there is still communication. Communication still takes place even without the use of verbal communication. What is verbal communication? Communication which uses words, be it oral or written, we call it verbal communication. And then the sign language relativity, we will also talk about this. We will have examples about sign language relativity. So that means the sign languages, the meaning of the sign languages differ from one culture to another. So we do not expect that we have the same meaning or our sign languages have the same meaning with that of the Americans or the Japanese people. So it differs. Advantages of sign language. There are advantages. Why? Because if we have brothers and sisters who could not speak and who could not hear, then they may use sign languages. So they study sign languages. So there is also schools for sign languages. So it paves the way to adopt and adapt to people and the world. So they can still convey, they can still understand, they can still give feedback, but with the use of the sign language. Okay. Moving on. So now, this is an example of the flexibility of human language. If one could not say mom or dad or sister or brother or aunt or uncle or whatever that is, apple, cereal, more, eat, drink, okay, dance. They could not speak dance or they could not say dance. But they know the equivalent of those words into sign languages, then they could still communicate. They can still say mom through the use of sign language. They may not say it verbally, but they could convey it through a sign language. So that is, our language is very flexible. We are not only focused on verbal communication. We could do non-verbal communication. As what the cliche says, or as what the cliche goes, actions speak louder than words. Okay? Remember, communication is complex. Why? Because there are a lot of factors to consider. Okay? And one factor is through the use of sign language. Remember, our movements, our gestures, our signs and symbols are different. Okay? The meaning are different. When we go to Japan, their signs and symbols are also different. Their meanings are different. Okay, so that is how flexible the human language is. Okay, moving on. The sign language relativity. When we say relative, for example, what is beautiful to me may not be beautiful to you. So it depends. Same goes with sign language. This means differently in Japan. In the Philippines, this is different. This has a different meaning. In Japan, this has a different meaning. So that is relative because it is based on culture. It is the meaning of sign languages are different from one culture to another. You always remember that. So you do not expect that all those signs and symbols have the same meaning. Again, it varies. There are variations. So for example, sign language of letter C is different in Australia, in America, in India, in Netherlands, in New Zealand, as well as the letter N, it is different in Australia, America, and so on. So that is the sign language relativity. Okay? So the advantages of sign language, of course, it is very advantageous. It could be more, it gives more advantage if you know how to speak, you also know how to do sign languages, right? Because if someone could not speak, then you could do sign language as long as you understand the meanings of those sign languages. So it could be an advantage. Okay, so again, don't worry. It does not focus on verbal communication. Again, human language is flexible. So we could communicate through non-verbal channel or through non-verbal communication. So that is one of the advantages of sign language. So communication between culture is facilitated by the availability of a common language. Okay, so for example, of course, nowadays, and even before, we use English as our common language. So when there are foreigners from other countries, when there are people from other countries, how do we communicate with them? If we do not use nonverbal communication, we use English so that they could understand what we want to tell them or what we want to convey. Okay, so The said premise of Casigador in 2019 is analogous with the concept that there must be a common understanding through sounds and symbols that people utilize for talking or writing. And living in vast diversity, though it's possible to experience a language barrier during work, travel, or everyday life, say for instance, meeting people who speak a different language can be challenging. Of course. So this is why we need a common language. And if we could not, if a person could not speak, if people in that area could not speak, then they also have their common language, and that is through the use of sign languages. Okay, it is facilitated by the availability of a common language. And sometimes if we talk with a foreigner and we do not know how to say it in English, especially, we use hand gestures, we use body movements, we use our facial expressions to convey what we want to say, right? So that is a common language. Okay, second one, rising above language barriers. Of course, there are barriers, there are noises. Sometimes the communication process is not effective because of the barriers. Okay, one way of rising above language difficulty is using a sign language. Of course, it is very complex. Again, because there are a lot of things to memorize, because one sign language has a lot of meaning across cultures. Okay, so as people move across borders, explore opportunities, and interact with others, a common language becomes a need to thrive. And for that reason, the contribution of a sign language is gaining momentum and showing evidence that it is a necessity in today's society. So according to Berry in 2020, it is very vital, it is very important that we know how to communicate using a sign language, because we have, or there are barriers across cultures when we communicate with them. So it is an advantage if we know how to use sign language. It is gaining momentum according to the study of Berry in 2020. Okay, so let's talk about the birth of sign languages. What is the origin of sign language? So in retrospect, sign language is traced back before Christ and during the Renaissance. So do you remember the Renaissance period? Okay, so the middle Renaissance. So some scientific evidence pertaining to the bones of hominids suggested that the voice space of early humans would not accommodate the complex speech apparatus we have now. So remember, language is very complex. However, it is flexible. Okay, so though varied theories arise as to why and how these sign languages evolved, nobody can accurately determine their early origin. That is according to Larson and Holland in 1998. So Perlmutter in 2013, he argues that in the second half of the 20th century, several observed that numerous thoughts are differently expressed in signs, which are assumed as an ungrammatical form of English. Of course, it is ungrammatical because we do not use words. We do not use structures, right? We only use sign languages. So afterward, sign languages are utilized to substitute for speech. So that is the origin of sign language. Okay? So flexibility of human language vis-a-vis sign languages. So the discovery of sign language in the second half of 20th century, it was found out, we say that, or we learn that that language or human language is very flexible. So the sign language and its existence. A sign language is a language that involves encoding, again, the same process that we follow when we communicate using verbal communication. So a sign language is a language that involves encoding as well as decoding of messages through the use of hands, face, and other body movements. So messages are conveyed through gestures, through facial expressions, and through body movements. So it is done to achieve a shared and or common understanding of a message. So it allows people to persuade, inform, and entertain, and through a sign language, a better understanding of other people and the world happens because it creates connections with others from different places with diverse beliefs, cultures, and customs. The only problem is that what if we do not know the meaning of the sign languages? Because again, it is said that the meanings of the sign languages varies across cultures. Okay? So, but however, it could be learned. We could learn those things. Okay? So, these are the examples of sign languages. Some examples only. Let's have, for example, the horn finger. Okay, this is an example of a sign language. In USA, it is a sign of approval or to rock on as adopted by rockers. In the Philippines, it also means to rock on. Okay? In Italy, Brazil, Portugal, and Spain, it is a sign of cheating. So if you do this, you tell the person or the listener that his wife, perhaps, his husband, perhaps, his girlfriend, perhaps, his boyfriend, perhaps, is cheating. Because this is a sign of cheating. Okay? So you have to be very careful so that you do not offend other people, especially people from other cultures or coming from other cultures. Next is fingers all together. Look at this, like this. In Italy, it means a sign of inquiry. So when you want to clarify something, what is it? What do you want? It means sign of inquiry. But in Democratic Republic of Congo, it means there is only a small amount of something. In Egypt, this is a sign of time. It's a motion that you only have a minute. So 1 minute left, 5 minutes left, so sign of time. Okay. How about the V sign? In USA or Philippines, it is a sign of peace. Or it also means to rock on. However, in Australia, Ireland, UK, and New Zealand, it is a sign of rudeness. It signifies defiance, contempt towards authority. So meaning you are deviant. Okay? So you defy the authority or the policies perhaps of the country or of the city or of the organization. So this is a sign of rudeness. Summoning finger, like this. Okay, so this is an example of summoning finger. Of course, in the Philippines, if you call someone like this or through this is very rude. Do not do this. This sign is tantamount to calling dogs. So when you want to call someone, you call him or her by his or her name. If you do not know the name of the person, you call Miss or you say Mr. or Ma'am or Sir. But do not do this. This is very rude. Okay? So it should not be used to let someone come over to you. So be formal. Okay. In your circle of friends, if this is okay, in other contexts, this is not okay. If in your household, this is okay. In other places, this is not okay. So it really differs from one culture to another. If you have itchy palm in Ghana and Philippines, this is a sign of money. It indicates that money is coming. Okay, so my palm is itchy, so there might be money coming to me. So that is the meaning of itchy palm in Ghana and Philippines. In other places, it may also mean differently. Okay. How about the body posture? So if you do this body posture, in the left side, that means you are anxious. So there is anxiety. Maybe you are afraid about something. So it is timid. You are timid. But if you do the power pose, that means you are confident. Okay, so standing in a power pose for 2 minutes boosts testosterone and confidence, and it lowers cortisol and anxiety or stress. So when you speak in front of the public, do not put your hands in your pocket, because that is one of the things that you do not do in front of the public, because it means you are not comfortable, you are nervous, so you do the power pose, okay, to signify that you are confident. And let's have this posture. So if the eyebrows are raised, that signals discomfort. Okay? If your voice goes up and down, that means you are interested about something. You are interested to listen to the speech, to the person who is talking. So you are very enthusiastic. So it means interest. Eye contact, if you stare, if the staring takes a very long time, it may indicate lying. You're not telling the truth. If the legs are crossed, that signals resistance and low receptivity. If the legs are expansive and authoritative posture, it shows leadership. If your legs are shaking, that signals that you are nervous. It signals a shaky inner state, so meaning you are not comfortable. You are anxious. Okay, so that is also the meaning of those body gestures and facial expressions. So that ends our discussion on sign languages. I hope everything is clear. If you have questions, just post them in the comment section of the open forum. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.